the one who has spousal relations, intercourse, in the daytime in Ramadan. Tayyib, what does that exclude from it? That's the first thing to understand. When you read a matan, you understand what it includes and what it excludes. People understand sometimes what it includes without benefiting from the precise writing of the author. And that's why the authors, they did such a great job of mentioning so many masail in few words. What we see obviously is the issue of spousal relations during the daytime in Ramadan, and that does invalidate the fast, and we'll discuss that today inshallah. But reading that line in the matan, what do you understand is excluded from that, right? Is other than jima'. And if somebody maybe has fondling or hugging or kissing, and those things are not included in this hukam that we're going to discuss. Right? The second thing, it does not include the night of Ramadan, obviously, because it says nahar. The third thing, it does not include other fasting, meaning if it's a nafal fast outside of Ramadan and somebody has spousal relations, then the kaffara we will discuss is not applicable on them. And this is something very important. Many people don't know this hukam. People think this is for any time. And I know people in other countries that were fasting, and he asked them what happened. He said, I'm making up 2 months. What happened? I was doing a nafal fast and I had spousal relations, and the Shaykh told me I gotta do this. And I told him, no, this is outside of Ramadan. Nafal fasting, the hukam is not applicable. The next thing, as Al-Buyuti mentioned in Rawd al-Murbi' and other shuruh, is what if it's a day of makeup for Ramadan? Like you're making up a day, mu'tamadan in the madhab, and what is clear is that is also not included. That is a makeup day. It is not the day of Ramadan in Ramadan. And that's why it mentions in Ramadan, not just for Ramadan. Tayyib. Whether it is the regular vaginal or from the front or the back, those are both going to be, they will both have, now you will have ithm because you did it during the day in Ramadan. Second, you will have qada. You will have to make up that day. And on top of that, you will have kaffara, expiation. What is expiation here? We'll discuss that in the lesson, inshallah. But we mentioned 3 things, right? So there is ithm. So if for example, somebody drinks alcohol in the daytime in Ramadan, will they get sin? Yes, they get sin. So there is ithm involved here. Then you have qada. If somebody gets her haid in the daytime in Ramadan, does she have ithm? La. Does she have qada? Yes. And the last thing is kaffara. Nothing that we've mentioned on our list up in the earlier summary requires kaffara. This is the first and only thing that requires kaffara, is jima' fi nahar Ramadan, is spousal relations in the daytime in Ramadan. Tayyib. Now we get to, if somebody has such they have something that ejaculates outside of the body, no vaginal or back entry, no entrance, has that, then if it was on purpose, from fondling and so on, it will require qada, but it will not require kaffara. So this is now, the muallif is mentioning the exceptions. This is one. Secondly, another person who would not require kaffara, although they will have qada, is going to be for the woman who's forced, like the husband forced. Under force, there is 3 subcategories. As in the shuruh that we always mention. One is jahl. Somebody didn't know the hukam, right? Now, will that apply to the man as well or not? There is khilaf ulama. But at least for the woman, jahl is an excuse. She didn't know, and the husband coerced her into it. So she will have qada, but not kaffara. But if she was willing and she knew, then she will also have the 2 months. Men and women are the same. For the men, many of the ulama said he will not get this excuse because it was a responsibility to know and so on. But wallahu alam. And so one is ignorance. Second is unknowingly. She didn't realize it, right? She will be excused, but not him. And the third is force, as we mentioned. So all this will be under force, ma'dhura, when she is forced. In those situations, she will have to make up the day, but not kaffara. The man, he will still have to do kaffara. The third scenario here is for the one, I'll throw this question out. I taught this matan very briefly in another country once, and I asked this question, everybody got it wrong, but now you guys will get it right because of context here. But somebody in Ramadan is traveling. You're traveling in Ramadan, and you decide, I'm gonna fast. You have the option not to fast, but you decide, I'm gonna fast. And you're traveling with your family, just you and your spouse, and you have relations in Ramadan while fasting, while traveling. Do you have kaffara or not? Yes. Have khilaf of ulama. Yes. Yes. No. Anybody else? No. Yes. Man, mashallah. We're almost evenly split. Yes? Yes? I think the yeses are more. Abdul Mateen, what do you think? No? No? Adam, you know why he said no? Because the context. The correct answer is no. But why? This is where us, Kullatul Hadith, Tullab, our minds get, what? Like, right? But this is where and again, I'm including myself in those Kullatul Hadith. My graduation is also from Kullatul Hadith. But the Usul al-Fiqh guys will get it. Tayyib. Kaffara is due for Jama'ah during Ramadan. That is correct. But if you're traveling, do you have the option of breaking your fast without ithm? Yes. Right? When you're traveling, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran has given you a rukhsa that you can break the fast without sin. Tayyib. How can you break your fast? Eating, drinking, Jama'ah. Is there any mana on it? No. All those methods are open to you to utilize to break your fast because you have the excuse, the rukhsa, the concession given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if somebody utilizes Jama'ah as the method to break the fast, there is no sin on them because they had that and they have no kaffara. Will they have qada? Yes, but no kaffara. So this, whoever said no is correct. And this is very interesting. Like I said, I was teaching this shortly in another country, and all the brothers were tullab ilm, mashallah, already, but they wanted to study Zad. So we were going over this, and I asked this question. Everybody got it wrong. You guys, mashallah, at least you 50-50'd it almost, right? Because if you take just the essence of the hadith, and we'll talk about the hadith and so on, then Rasulullah had ordered kaffara. But the usul, which we sometimes just looking at the hadith don't understand, is that does the person have an option without ithm, to break the fast? Yes, no doubt. And if that is true, then if they use this method, would there be any sin? Would they have kaffara? No. So that is correct. Tayyib. Then we get to the second clarification. If somebody has Jama'ah and then they give the kaffara, tayyib, let's use, and we'll get into what the kaffara is, but let's say somebody in the morning, zawal time, they have Jama'ah and they feel really bad and they go and they free a slave, right? They give the kaffara. But before Maghrib, they did Jama'ah again. What do they have to do? They have to give kaffara again, right? 2 kaffaras. 1 qada, but 2 kaffaras. Because qada has to do with the day, but kaffara has to do with the action. Tayyib. And if somebody does Jama'ah and does kaffara a second day, you did it one day, and you did it second day, then again 2 kaffaras, because it has to do with the action. If somebody hadn't given kaffara and did multiple Jama'ah, then for each one there is kaffara. Tayyib. Then we get to the issue of if somebody is required imsak, but they've already invalidated their fast. This is an interesting scenario now. Let's say you wake up and you decide, I'm going to smoke a cigarette. Astaghfirullah. Right? And you light up a cigarette. What happens to your sawm? Your sawm is invalid. You have to do qada. But do you have to have imsak or no? Do you still abstain from all the things like the one who's fasting? Yes. So you smoked a cigarette, you invalidated your fast. And then you're like, well, might as well go for Jama'ah. And you make Jama'ah, now your fast is invalid, right? Do you have to do kaffara? Yes. Because imsak there constituted for you to stay away from those things, so you will still have kaffara. If somebody travels, tayyib, and I'm going a little bit out of the matan to explain now. If somebody decides to go for safar, you and your spouse decide we're going to go and travel in the morning, right? And you decide we're not going to fast, even though it's a day in Ramadan, because we're traveling and it's going to be difficult. Perfectly fine. Now on that safar, if you have Jama'ah, no kaffara, right? But if somebody is muqim, you're still in your house, in your own locality, and you make Jama'ah, and then you travel, okay? So you were muqim when you made Jama'ah, and you were fasting for Ramadan, and then you traveled later in the day. Is the kaffara dropped? No. You guys understand that one? Okay, good. The same thing is true if somebody became sick later on in the day or lost their sanity. In all those cases, the kaffara will still be applicable because in the early time of the day, when you did not have any of those excuses, that's when the Jama'ah happened. If somebody was sick in the morning, and broke their fast with a valid sickness, and that means they don't have to do imsak here because they've broken their fast due to a valid reason that they're going to eat and drink and so on. And in that case, if they had jama'ah, then they would not have kaffara or itham. The qada will be from the original breaking, not from jama'ah. And the muallif then he continues, وَلَا تَجِبُ الْكَفَّارَ بِغَيْرِ جِمَاعٍ فِي الصِّيَامِ الرَّمَضَانِ. There is no kaffara except if there is jima', there is intercourse, and has to be a fasting in Ramadan. Okay? We already discussed that it will not include nafal fasting or a makeup day for Ramadan and so on. Tayyib, what is the kaffara? Kaffara, we talk about fidya and kaffara and hajj, those are different. Here, there are 4 things and they are in order. They are in order. So you need to always understand that there is an order here. You cannot pick and choose. You cannot say, I'll take this over the other. Tayyib, the first is to free a slave. Mu'tamadan in the madhab, and what is rajih is a Muslim slave. Tayyib, so meaning that maybe some Muslim got enslaved somewhere and you have the ability to go buy their freedom. And as your kaffara, you go and you buy their freedom and you free them. Alhamdulillah, this is one of the ways that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala legislated to end slavery. And even when a non-Muslim, for example, owns a slave, to free that slave and to free the people is through kaffara. So this is the first. If you're able to do that, then you cannot do anything else. Today, alhamdulillah, we don't have slavery and we don't see that going on. So, I mean, unless you're in South Sudan or something, I don't think you'll be able to free a slave. So khalas, so that one is usually not applicable for us. Second, if you are unable to do that, then the second, which will be the usual case for us unfortunately, is fasting 2 months consecutively. 2 months. And that's separate from the qada of the day. The qada that you're doing of the day is separate. But 2 months without a break, that's very difficult. So don't go down this path in the daytime in Ramadan. Control yourself, right? So 2 months in what sense? Lunar months, right? So, and they will be without break. And if you break, what is rajih? You start over. And if you break, you start over. Right? If you are physically unable, not that you don't want to, if you're physically unable to do that, then you feed 60 poor people. 60 poor people. And if you're unable to do any of those, meaning you don't have the ability to free a slave, you're physically unable to fast, not that you don't want to, because nobody wants to, but if you're unable to, and you don't have enough wealth to feed 60 poor people, then it's dropped. And this is all based on the hadith reported by Abu Huraira radiallahu anhu, as reported in Al-Bukhari and Muslim, that the man who came to Rasulullah sallallahu and he explained it, Rasulullah gave him these ahkam. Sahih hadith, no doubt to it, so this is why. But understand, when we say it's dropped, this is for the kaffara of sawm, not hajj and fidya of hajj and kaffara of hajj and al-yameen and all those are different ahkam. But here, if you're unable to, then Allah forgives the person and it's dropped. Okay, we'll stop here.